This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. 2021 has started out just about where 2020 left off, at least when it comes to the role of race in our politics, with a record turnout in Georgia of black voters and other people of color. We welcome now Marc Morial. He is president and CEO of the National Urban League. So welcome back, Marc. Great to have you here. As I say, the numbers I saw
were... Glad to be with you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, sir. The numbers I saw were pretty impressive in terms of the black voter turnout in Georgia.
There was a tremendous amount of effort put into turning out African-American votes. Of course, Stacey Abrams' candidacy for governor 2 years ago laid a foundation. But I also believe that the community-based effort, the self-propelled effort, the number of community activists, including us at the National Urban League, with our partners in Atlanta and Columbus and beyond, helped to motivate, encourage, and stimulate voter turnout. And I also think the presence of a Raphael Warnock on the ballot really helped to drive the sense of the ability to be able to make history in electing Georgia's first black United States senator in history. But mostly, I think African-American voters, and many, understood that the stakes were high, not only for Georgia, but that Georgia held, if you will, the key to a change in direction in the United States Senate. So that turnout was also, I think, assisted by the fact that you had an expanded options to vote. People could vote by mail, they could vote early in person, or they could vote on election day. And I think that is one of the reasons why you had far fewer, if you will, irregularities and problems, because you're not trying to stuff 4 million people into basically a method of voting only in person on election day. So kudos to Georgia for the great turnout and the effort, and I think it demonstrates the growing power of African-American voters, particularly when there's an organization, when they're motivated, and when they feel confidence in the candidates who are running.
It sure looks like that from where I sit, no question about it. At the same time, we had that awful situation in Washington, D.C. yesterday with that mob really rioting by Capitol Hill, invading the Senate chamber and the House chamber. I have seen some reporting, some speculation, some editorializing actually, suggesting that the response of the law enforcement officials might have been different if this had been a Black Lives Matter rally, for example.
That's the sense I'm picking up throughout the community, but there are a lot of questions. Who held the permit, indeed, for the march and the rally? Were they required, as we have in the past, with civil rights marches and rallies, to post a bond, to provide insurance, to engage in meetings around security? Or were they waivers? Was this, if you will, given special treatment? My question is, how did law enforcement miss the fact that this mob of people, tens of thousands of people coming into town, who announced and pronounced with the president as its leader, inciter, aider, and abettor, that they, quote, "we're going to make January 6th a day to be remembered in American history"? I mean, how'd they miss this? I do think that had this been a Black Lives Matter or a civil rights protest, this would have been handled very differently. The law enforcement agencies in the Capitol and in Washington, D.C. would have been far more aggressive. At the end of the day, we've got a Capitol that was invaded. We've got property that's been damaged. We have 4 people who've been dead. And we have a set of circumstances which, had one of those protesters had a high-powered assault weapon, could have been catastrophic for the American people and catastrophic for the leadership of this nation. This was an act of insurrection, an act of sedition, and an attempted coup d'etat. And I think it needs to be seen for what it is. And those that carried it out, those that aided it, abetted it, and organized it, need to be held accountable. And I just learned that the rally that took place in advance of the march was permitted to Rudy Giuliani, Roger Stone, and these 2 characters called Diamond and Silk. And so one of the important questions is who funded this, who organized it, who encouraged it, who aided it, who abetted it, in addition to those that invaded the Capitol and trespassed, in addition to those that damaged property, those that organized it, they need to be held accountable. There needs to be a complete and thorough criminal investigation and charges brought against the perpetrators, the inciters, the aiders, and the abettors. And I strongly believe that it's time for Vice President Pence and the cabinet to invoke the provisions of the 25th Amendment. Donald Trump has become a danger to the American people beyond any way imaginable with 2 weeks left to go.
Well, and as we know, Chuck Schumer, the senator from New York, who's about to become the majority leader of the U.S. Senate, is now called for the invocation of the 25th Amendment. But let me ask you, just in the few moments we have left here, we need to bring this country back together. I'm sure you agree with that, Mark. Is that a good way to get that done?
Look, when people seek to overthrow the government, there can be no coddling. There can be no, if you will, aw shucks, we understand. 4 people are dead. An armed insurrection against the government by looking the other way is not the way to bring the nation together. Look, in order to bring the nation together, we have to cut out the cancer of hate. We've got to, if you will, confront the cancer of racism that seemingly is about. It's striking to me that you have people saying, I feel disenfranchised and forgotten. And that comes out of one side of their mouth. Out of the other side of their mouth, it is, under Donald Trump, I've never done better.
Mark, it's always great having you with us. That's Marc Morial. He's president of the National Urban League. Coming up, we're going to speak with Mick Mulvaney, who's just resigned from the Trump White House.